Good evening. The San Dimas City Council meeting for Tuesday, August 22nd will come to order. Please rise. And repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oral communications. Members of the audience are invited to address the City Council on any item on this agenda or not on this agenda. Public comment will not be taken during each individual agenda item except for public hearing items. Comments on public hearing items will be heard when that item is scheduled for discussion. Under the provisions of the Brown Act, the legislative body is prohibited from engaging in discussion on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. However, your concerns may be referred to the staff or set for a discussion at a later date. Each speaker will be limited to speaking once for up to 3 minutes. Madam Clerk.
First speaker is Pete Lewis.
Hi, Council, everybody. I'd like to comment on the recent approval of the large homeless housing project in LA, which is formerly known as the Mayfair Hotel. I'm sure I've sent you emails and whatevers, but it's actually been approved now. And I was going to, how it relates to San Dimas, which most of you guys are probably aware of, but I thought I'd just give you the points again. There are two common arguments that we have and that are made against us on most of our projects around here that deal with the council or the supervisors and whatnot. The first is we are a not in my backyard community. And actually, some things should reasonably never be in anyone's backyard without proper mitigations. For instance, Metrolink falls into that category. No one should have high-speed trains running through their backyard, further exacerbated by a later FRA train rule requiring honking. Metrolink claims they don't have to do anything, but they are legally right, but morally wrong. The death count, agitated neighbors, and the current actions of Metro, who are responsibly installing superior fencing and sound walls on their adjacent light rail system, which they legally don't have to do, are proof of that. Something else that should never be in your backyard is a 4 or 5-story building towering over you. The second argument is cost. The state of California has advanced projects wrapped around the homeless without looking at reasonable costs. In fact, they look to be deliberately advancing some projects to establish extremely high comps from which they later can fill, greatly benefiting someone, not the taxpayer. A group, housing advocate group or homeless advocate group, housing is a human right, say the cost of the Mayfair is too high, as the $83 million figure equates to about $282,000 per unit. Compare the $282,000, which a homeless advocacy group says is too high, with our $786,000 cost, which equates to $1,800 per square foot that we are being asked to put in or to approve or to help or whatever. I guess we don't even have any control over that, but that's what the state is putting through. In a reasonable state, this would have been stopped. Exploitation of this is really taking the homeless and just wrapping and exploiting them. They're using them as a prop, and I'm totally against that. I'm for helping the homeless, but not helping waste money. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Pete.
Mayor, that's the only speaker card that's been turned in.
Anyone wishing to speak?
Good evening, Mayor Bader and City Council. I'm so sorry, being a Bonita Unified School Board member, you think I'd know process and I should have filled out a card, so I apologize. But I'm here tonight speaking as the president of our local San Dimas Laverne Seroptimus, which is an international organization to support women. And we're going to have our major fundraiser for the year on September 30th. And I'm going to turn the microphone over to Karen, and she's just going to talk to you and the audience about that for a minute. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, distinguished councilmen. Good evening, all you ladies and gentlemen. We have been affected by COVID, like all of you, and for 3 years have been unable to do fundraisers to support our Benitez Children Project, which I'm sure you're all aware of, where we clothe and buy shoes for about 100 children every year from Benitez School District. So you all now have the opportunity to help us refund our project. On September 30th, at Hillcrest, we're having our major fundraiser. It's a silent auction. There will be food, and most importantly, the entertainment will be you. It's a trivia night, and it's billed as San Dimas versus Laverne. So anyone who wants to support San Dimas, you can either buy a ticket and come root for your favorite team or bring your favorite team. If nobody likes you and you don't have a team, we'll put you with a team. And it will be lots of fun. We need your support because we want to keep this project going, and we just can't do it without City of San Dimas supporting us. So please represent your city. If you have any questions, you can call myself up at my law office on Foothill, or you can call Chris Ann. She's with the school board, and I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak to the council at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent decree.
Mr. Mayor, I actually think he has a speaker card.
Thanks.
Hello, good evening. My name is Juan Gualutuna. I live in Charles Oaks, Space 25, and I being evicted for the property, and I feel discriminated. I haven't done nothing wrong. I own the property for 2 years. I've been resident for the past 4 years, and I feel it had the proper agreement with the previous manager. This new management company take over like probably 6 months, and they say they don't have records on my contract as a resident. So because of that, I've been evicted. And for some reason, all my records disappear. And there's a lot of assertions of myself saying that I'm a bad person, that I'm selling drugs, that I use the guest parking spaces, which a lot of the residents, they use it. I mean, most of the residents, they have 2-3 cars. But, I spoke to the lawyer and said, no, we talk about you. So I said, what about so-and-so space 25 or whatever? Because no, we talk about you. So I feel, discriminated. And so because of that, they gave me a 5-day notice to surround my house, which was impossible to move out in 5 days. And that's the reason I'm here for. I spoke to somebody that represents the park, and literally she told me that it's not up to us, it's up to the management company.
Right, Chris, do you want to refer this to your housing manager? How do you want to handle this?
I'm just going to let the housing manager deal with it. Some of it could be sensitive and not appropriate for public discussion.
Right. All right. So, Lily, could you talk to this man outside and figure out what's going on? All right. This is our housing manager, Lily, and talk with her. Let her know what's going on, and then
I appreciate it. Thank you.
No problem, sir. Thank you for coming. Okay, anyone else wishing to speak to the council at this time? Seeing none, we will move on. Anybody, Ryan? Nobody else?
Ready if you are, sir.
We'll go to the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion unless a member of the city council requests a separate discussion.
Move approval.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to note I will be recusing myself from item number 5.
Thank you. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. Motion carries 4-1. Okay. Let's see, how do you word this the best way?
5-0 on all the items, but
5-0.
item number 5 was 4-1 with Vienna abstaining, or recusing himself.
Thank you. All right. We'll move on. Other business. This will be interesting. Okay, we're going to call Luis Tarico, Community Development. We're going to discuss commercial outdoor dining areas and come up with either direction or to remove temporary structures erecting during COVID-19. Luis?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. This item is being brought to you for discussion and direction in regards to temporary outdoor dining that have been put up in response to COVID and creating a path to create permanent outdoor dining for these restaurants. The last time this was presented to the council, staff was given direction to explore standards and bring those back for discussion before we would introduce or work on an ordinance. And just to clarify, when we last spoke, we were looking at standards for outdoor dining on private property, conversion of parking spaces, and also on public right-of-way or the sidewalk. The staff has been working on the downtown specific plan, and we are incorporating standards for dining on the sidewalk in the public right-of-way within the downtown specific plan, as majority of the properties that would support sidewalk dining are located within the boundaries. So therefore, excuse me, that will be presented to you as part of the draft downtown specific plan in the near future. So the standards being discussed today are specifically for private property and or conversion of parking spaces on private property. So as previously mentioned, so in response to COVID-19, we allowed restaurants to set up temporary structures and temporary areas for dining so they can maintain operations. A lot of these restaurants took advantage of it and utilized either parking spaces or areas within the sidewalk or areas within the private property that accommodated these spaces to be used. Since we last talked this item with the council, the governor ended the actual state of emergency for the COVID-19 pandemic. And therefore, one of the things that we're asking for is to give direction and whether or not we should ask these restaurants that still have the outdoor dining areas to be removed. There are approximately, I think there are 4 restaurants that still are using it. In your staff report, we identified Levia Kitchen, Butter Cafe, Rody's, and Las Pupusas Cafe. Since the report was published, Levia Kitchen has actually taken theirs down, and they reverted back to the parking space. An additional restaurant that was not included in your report was the Pizza Place, located across the street within the Albertson Shopping Center. They also have some temporary chairs and canvases that were set up behind the outdoor patio that are still being used. So those restaurants and any other ones that we might have missed, we are asking direction whether we can actually approach these restaurants and give them notice to take these structures down. And then just to clarify, we are only going to be asking that they remove any temporary like canopies that are set up or temporary chairs that are set up in areas where they were not originally designated for outdoor dining. For example, Rody's Cafe, they have an outdoor dining area, but they don't have any coverage for it. So they installed an easy up type canopy. So if we've given direction, we would ask them to remove that structure and look to install a permanent structure. For those that are located within the sidewalk, since those standards will be presented to you in the near future as part of the downtown specific plan, we do have an existing policy. So any restaurant that would like to do permanent outdoor dining between now and then, they can still do so as long as they comply with our policy. Now, before you in your staff report, what we put together is some proposed standards that we could be applied for outdoor dining areas in private property. This would also include the conversion of parking spaces into outdoor dining areas, which, for example, Levia Kitchen was doing, Butter Cafe is doing, and several others were doing during the pandemic. Some of the standards that we've discussed that could potentially be included in an ordinance would be to cap the number of spaces that they can convert, we have suggested 4 spaces maximum. That is roughly about 650 square feet, or better yet, same size as a 3-car garage. And for comparison purposes, La Villa Kitchen was using 3 spaces, Butter Cafe is using 8 spaces. So we can cap it. We are suggesting 4 spaces, but certainly we can discuss whether more or less is more appropriate. We also believe that whichever number we end up with in terms of they can convert is that no additional parking to be required should they decide to convert the parking spaces. And we can apply this for centers that we are aware that there are no existing parking impacts. If there's a center that has parking issues and parking impacts, maybe we'll look at it a little closely and require maybe a parking count or something to that effect to determine whether or not the conversion would be appropriate. We've also included that we require some sort of delineation through railings or barriers. We don't feel that there should be one specific design. I think that there's different appropriate designs that could be applied, whether it's planters, as was discussed before, metal railings or fencing, or even like glass partitions. Any of those we believe can be appropriate, and we don't feel that they need to be, like for an example, that they need to be consistent when we get to the point for sidewalk uses. So I think as long as they're done in a professional manner and with materials that are durable, I think that we can be open to different design standards. In terms of shade structures, we would prefer permanent solutions such as a solid roof covering, a trellis, or an awning that they be used instead of using the easy ups or those membrane structures. They could also use umbrellas as well as another option. And then we've also put in there, recommended that some of these restaurants do have areas that are already allocated for outdoor dining, but they're not using it. So in those situations, we would recommend that they try and work with those existing spaces before we allow them to convert and lose parking in the center. So these are just some of the options that we've put before you. Obviously, we can discuss those further or even suggest and explore other ones, but we'd like to get some direction from you. One, to get direction how to respond, how to reach out to the property owners and to take these down, the ones that are temporary, and second, to get direction whether these would be sufficient or we want to explore more to be drafted into an ordinance. That concludes staff's report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
When you say that a maximum of 4 spaces is what your recommendation would be for the number that they could convert to dining, do we have any idea about how many people that could reasonably seat for outdoor dining type of scenario?
I think it all depends on the types of chairs and tables they use. I think, for example, Butter Cafe, they're using the picnic style tables, and I think each table can sit between 6 and 8 people. And I think in 4 spaces, they would probably fit 4 or 5 of those tables. So again, I think it depends what type of chairs and what the seating that you use.
You don't want to, strip mall. Okay, you have a restaurant, then you have businesses on either side. Who takes into account those business, what their opinion is? Because 4 spaces, will extend past most of these restaurants. So the distance, is there a way, or is there a concern about the business that's on the left or the right of these restaurants?
That can certainly be an issue of discussion. And so if we were to move something like this forward, we'd obviously require, as part of the application, that the either property management company or the owners sign off on this application to ensure that any adjacent business wouldn't be impacted. But we can certainly look into that and potentially limit, if they're directly in front of the space, limit the spaces to where they're not creating impacts to the adjacent businesses.
Anyone else?
Louis, quick question on roadies, for example. Did you say that umbrellas would be okay instead of the easy ups?
Yes.
Okay. And if we're asking those who still have the membrane structures up to remove them, are we giving them 30 days, 60 days, something like that?
Oh, for sure, definitely. I think that if we were to get direction to move forward tonight, we would work on drafting a letter and sending a letter out to these businesses and giving them anywhere between, I think 60 days is between 30 and 60 days is reasonable. And we actually reached out to all these businesses as well that are in your report, and also the pizza place, to inform them about the discussion tonight.
How'd they feel about it?
The only one that actually had some concerns was the Burger Cafe, because they mentioned to me that on the weekends they use all the tables outside. So they along with the other ones would be interested in us creating a path that they can do something more permanent. But I did explain to the manager at Better Cafe briefly that it would require some work. Like, for example, the parking spaces, if they convert them into permanent, they'd have to do some kind of decking or something to raise the floor area so it's level with the sidewalk. It complies with ADA requirements and so forth. So, but Border Cafe was the only one that had some concerns.
And that kind of standard, and I think you mentioned that, the ADA compliance is important, not only for ADA compliance, also for appearance. And we've seen that in many cities where they've taken, like on a street actually, and taken out, can we turn that down? Taken some of the street parking and built a deck out, and similar to what your pictures are here, had some nicely done planters or fencing that protect it from. So I think that could be done. And I mean, I don't know how, I guess you do have to make sure there's enough parking still in the center, but.
Yeah. So I think, for example, the ones that, and I keep using the ones that are still up because those are the ones that, that more come to mind, but we have not been made aware that there's been parking issues for all these restaurants that occupied parking spaces. So, there's always a concern that you're losing parking and it doesn't comply with the code, and what are the impacts going to be. But these restaurants have been doing this for the past 3 years. And from our knowledge, we're not aware that there's parking issues. So why would we make them replace it? So.
Got it. Thank you.
I was going to say that I'm not sure necessarily a one-size-fits-all could work here, because when you look at some of the restaurants with storefronts and a bunch of neighbors, that's one consideration. Butter is unique in that it's a corner area, and the area that they occupy isn't really used. And go ahead, you were going to say something?
You are correct. It's unique. Those don't directly impact the businesses there, but my understanding, so those parking spaces on the side there, those were actually guest parking spaces for the multifamily development next door.
Interesting. They were using that as
part of
even
it.
Though it's walled off and everything
Yes.
else.
Yeah, because it was a joint development, so some of that, those do belong to that, not belong, but they were used as part of it's a mixture. So they mix the guest spaces and the commercial spaces, but you are right in the sense that they don't impact any of the other units.
Have we received complaints from
We have not.
Seems to me that my preference would be to think about multiple scenarios, and then any kind of a policy that you put forward might address that, because I don't think Better does fit in the same category as some of these other ones, and it might be worth thinking about the different types of businesses and what would be permitted in one versus another, so that you have some level of flexibility. Because it would be a shame if we did shut Butter down, we impacted their business. They've been through a lot, especially with the number of break-ins they've suffered and the rest. And frankly, what they have out there is not unattractive. I think that the purpose of having a policy is to limit temporary structures from degrading the look and feel of the city. And in this case, I think for me, as I drive by it, it almost feels like it blends in many ways, especially with the picnic tables and it being wood and matching some of the building elements. So that would be...
What I can suggest is whether we come up with a hard number, say, for example, we're using 4 right now as the example. If we use 4 as a max, we wouldn't require any additional parking for that. But anything beyond that, we can require that we look at parking a little bit closer to see whether or not any impacts would be created. So that can be a way to address that. But I do agree with you that one size does not fit all.
Yeah.
Through your analysis, kind of in keeping with what Councilmember Nakano was talking about, in the analysis that we did we look at the possibility of doing a percentage, like a percentage of available parking spaces, or perhaps a percentage of available square footage for parking that's available? So the larger the parking lot, the larger the outdoor seating area could be, the smaller the parking lot, the smaller.
We didn't do that. Honestly, the way that kind of the discussion, the analysis was led is, so our current policy exempts up to 12 seats. That a restaurant can come in right now and do 12 seats of outdoor dining and not require any additional parking. We felt that 12 seats, it's too little. And 12 seats, you can get more than 12 seats in 4 spaces or 650 square feet. So that's kind of our approach was. We really didn't look at the percentage. But that's something that we can certainly consider.
Additionally, I just, for the flexibility, we could put a caveat that, as determined by like the development, community development director, and we'd base it off of shared parking analysis and such, that there is sufficient parking to provide for the entire center, for multi-tenant centers, larger centers, and making sure that there's no impact.
Sure.
If there, we didn't want to put a hard limit.
Got it. Thanks.
Thanks for looking at this. I know it was an item I'd brought up some time ago, and I appreciate the work you guys did on this. I think that a lot of the businesses, I agree with Councilmember Nakano's comments and Weber's that, it can't be a one-size-fit-all. I think there's a lot of unique situations that have arisen with this. But at the same token, I also feel that a number of these businesses have had the opportunity, a rather extended opportunity, to see the viability of this type of complement to their business. I didn't hear Councilmember Ebner say it per se, but I am in favor of removing the membrane structures and looking to implement things that are more permanent. I think that the community, I've seen people eating outdoors more. I've seen people enjoying the shade and really taking advantage of that, even my wife and I. Butter and that particular complex, I think is unique because it's not just Butter, I think, that could benefit from that space. And I understand it's on private property, so I'm really interested on whether or not there's an exercise in surveying the tenants of the property and working with the property owner for more communal type of eating spaces. The benches that Butter put out there, if you go by on the weekend, they are packed. And there are people outside their doors. But there's also a new pizza place that just opened up there. And there's also some other opportunities where not just this shopping center, but even where La Via Kitchen is, having an outdoor space, if it was built properly, like a nice terrace or a patio that welcomes all of the different dining options and what have you, and could potentially be event space, I think is good opportunity. And I think that's all kind of under this opportunity here. I think Roadies, and even Las Papusas, those, I think, umbrellas or more permanent structure might be fitting, but I also think in these other areas like La Via Kitchen or Butter, there is that chance to look at that. I also worry that, and I agree that the existing structure doesn't look that bad, but for the purposes of ADA access, for the purposes of looking at protection and safety of people that are there, given the fact that the emergency is now over, I think we had an opportunity to look at it without a lot of red tape. And I'm not saying we need to throw a lot of red tape back into this, but I do think that if the businesses have seen that substantial benefit from it, then I think it's a real easy business decision in terms of being able to go in and put that type of investment forward. So,
yeah, I really agree with what Ryan said, and Eric as well. And I know that Mayor thinks the same thing about just giving the opportunity for Butter. It is kind of an interesting situation. I don't know how you fit the pizza or other businesses that might go in there, and maybe they want to go around the front as opposed to on the side there. And
I'd put it along Bonita, to be honest, and then make a terrace there and allow people just to exit. And
exactly. One of the things that makes Railside Cafe so nice is they've got like this huge sidewalk area. In that case, it's a city sidewalk, right?
Yeah.
But that's a very good community benefit. And here, the same thing could be done here, and if it's done nicely, and I think they'd even get better airflow and everything else through there if they had umbrellas as opposed to the tent. So yeah, totally in agreement with that. And I really appreciate the no specific design guidelines. It's kind of like you look at it and you've got some great pictures as examples, and it looks good. And it is subjective, but let's work with everybody, and they don't have to put the exact same fence in, the exact same planter or whatever, but make it nice.
One last question for me. I don't want to call it any particular businesses, but one in particular comes to mind, and I'm curious as to whether our code allows it for outdoor dining. And it's a Italian restaurant in Laverne that shall remain nameless, where there's a cover that goes over the sidewalk. It's a fairly narrow sidewalk with tables on both ends of the walkway. So you're walking down the middle of people's tables when you're just using the public right of way. Does our code allow that, or are we more restrictive as it pertains to that?
I'm familiar with the restaurant and actually pretty good.
It is.
I was going to say, is this the one with the good shrimp fettuccine dish? Yeah.
So that would go through our Public Works Department, and I think that one of the requirements they have is that they maintain the 5 foot, I think it's 5 foot ADA clearance. So I think that when the sidewalks were widened on Bonita, they were widened with the expectation that sidewalk dining would be adjacent to the unit. But I think situations that if they can potentially work with Public Works, but as long as they maintain that ADA 5 foot path of travel.
Definitely. Okay, thanks. That's always been a concern of mine when we talk about outdoor dining, because every time I walk through there, I feel so awkward, like I'm dropping in on somebody's meal or something like that. I always get weird looks. I don't know.
Bringing that up, that's a good point, too. I think, as you mentioned, the guidelines we originally had for Bonita was up against the building and however that worked. But I am completely open to having the situation that Eric is talking about. Maybe 5 feet isn't the right space, but if it's done right and with the right kind of protection from the street, whatever fence or planters you have, that could be a nice option and bring some liveliness to the street.
I agree.
Well, then, I guess for council, what's the feeling on 90 days to remove structures, let them be? What's the thought on that?
I'm in favor.
Yeah, that's fine with me. I think 90 days is very gracious.
All right, I would move that we direct staff to further examine the spirit of the council's discussion here as it relates to coming up with subjective design standards in some fashion that are in the spirit of allowing a pathway for outdoor dining opportunities and other creative use, if you will, related to this particular matter, and notify any folks that have structures remaining after the pandemic due to the expiration of the local emergency, 90 days notice to remove those structures, but also share with them this pathway opportunity and that the council is interested and supportive of pathways to putting in permanent structures.
Nicely put, and I'll second that.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. Okay. We'll move on to other business number 2, consideration of appointments of city council nominees to board commissions and committees. Deborah?
Mayor, council, and San Dimas community members, the discussion tonight is the culmination of a 3-year process that began in December of 2020. Presented in the agenda packet is the boards and commission nomination spreadsheet showing each council member's nomination and the applications for the nominees. With an approval tonight, all boards, commission, and committees will have full appointments and will be set up to begin September meetings. There were no new applications submitted after the posting of the agenda, which was last Friday. Staff is recommending that the slate of nominees be approved for appointments and for council to direct the city clerk to send official notification to all applicants. The following applicants have been nominated for boards and commission positions. For the Equestrian Commission, Renee Craven, Siri Jesperson, Mignon Andred, George, I'm sorry, George, if you're out there.
Iniguez.
Say it again.
Iniguez.
Yaniguez. Albert Pacelis. For the Gulf Committee, Tim Hughes and Don Green. For the Parks and Recreation Commission, Jesse Ash, Jan Bartolo, Ed Rodriguez, Christina Sang, Brandon Moon. For the Planning Commission, Dave Bratt, James Shirley, Margie Green, John Davis, and Doran Barnes. For Public Safety Commission, Larry Giannoni, Orlando Pimentel, Greg Tober, Bob Olander, and Ruth Lewin. For the Senior Commission, Wally Nikowitz, William Beebe, Rita McGee, and Nancy Brewster. With that reading of the list, we do have one open nominee. I believe that's for Council Member Vienna's appointment or a nominee.
Right, and tonight I'll be nominating Sandra Martinez for that position.
With that nominee to the Senior Commission, I now turn the discussion over to Council for the approval of the nominated list and appointments.
Okay. Bringing it back to Council. Anyone wishing to speak to this matter?
I just want to say that I think that this was a interesting process. It was a long road to get here. I hope that everybody that's been nominated to a commission takes their appointment as a badge of trust in the City Council. And you know, the goal originally when we went down this road was to kind of empower our commissions to take a more forward role in shaping the city and making recommendations to the council. So I hope everybody takes that to heart. I hope we get some good recommendations and some thoughtful consideration on the issues that will come before you. I have all the trust in the world that everybody will do just great. So thank you, everybody.
I would like to, first off, say, San Dimas, you didn't make this easy. I will tell you that much. This process was a little bit challenging, and even for us, I think, on council and with staff, there was some challenges. But I appreciate the patience of everybody in working through this with us to get to this point. I want to thank everybody that served on the commissions, who has in the past and who will be here in the future. I think that there was a lot of very dedicated people in this community. There are a lot of very dedicated people in this community, and some people did not get reappointed, and I understand they may be disappointed. But nevertheless, I want to say thank you for your service, and I hope you're not disenfranchised from continuing your service, because I sincerely think that there are lots of opportunities here in the community for service, and whether you're volunteering with the city or you're doing it with some of the other community or faith-based organizations we have here in town, there is a lot of need for volunteerism, and it's very hard to get people to volunteer. So if you did not find yourself nominated or subsequently appointed this evening, but you are interested in continuing to serve, I would be personally happy to help you connect you with other organizations in the community that do provide service and a benefit to the community. With that said, I want to, one, thank everyone for their patience, sincerely, for the process. It was very challenging. I will just explain my process for those who may be wondering, because each of us did things a little bit differently. And I know there was some confusion in some of that. And so my process simply was to look at the folks that applied, look at what their preferences was in terms of service on any identified body that they were interested in serving on. I did give priority to people that lived in the council district for which I represent, and therefore all the nominations that I made this evening were from the Council District 4 for which I'm elected to represent, with the exception of one, and that one who was appointed or nominated to the Parks and Recreation Commission was only because there was not one person in my 4th district that actually expressed an interest to serve on Parks and Recreation. So I went out of my district for that. I do know in talking with some folks that it was a little bit frustrating. Some council members did phone calls, some did interviews, some closed loops letting people know they weren't nominated, which in fact created confusion because when other council members would reach out, they'd say, oh, I interviewed and I didn't get the job. And, well, no, that's not exactly correct, and had to explain that process. Thankfully, I don't think we're going to have this issue in the future after this initial appointment period. I'm hopeful that the next round of this will be smoother and we'll work the kinks out, but at least for now, we should get this solved. And the last thing, before we dispense of this item and hear from my colleagues, is I am interested. I believe the council in the last discussion, I don't agree with the city manager's comments previously regarding the term zero idea. I believe there was consensus towards the notion that the appointments that we would make this evening would start a zero term for some of these folks and not count against their 2-year term. Meanwhile, others may not. And so my thought on that for council's consideration discussion as we do this in terms of nominations and appointments would be that any people who are nominated and appointed by myself and Councilmember Nakano basically are in the middle of, or their term starts effective once we make this nomination and terminates essentially a year and whatever months from this date, year and whatever it's going to be to September. Meanwhile, Council Member Ebner and Weber's appointments essentially will start September in a zero term, and then they will have the opportunity to either reaffirm or reappoint those individuals after the nomination period, which would start the staggering of the terms as previously discussed for the purposes of staggering the cycles. So, and then the mayors obviously would continue every 2 years. In English, what I'm saying here is that Eric, Nakano and I are midterm. So basically whoever we appoint now, they basically will be a year and 8 months or whatever it's going to be. Meanwhile, Ebner and Weber are about to come up for re-election. There will be a reappointment time, which I think we all said was going to be in September or whatever it was going to be. So anyone they appoint right now is basically on the last few months of that, similar to the election cycle, and then they could be reappointed for 2-year terms starting September of 24.
Yep, I understand what you're saying, Ryan. It'd be good to see that on a chart.
Right.
Yeah.
It might be a little more succinct.
Yes.
Right. It's in my head really good. I've got it.
We only have appointments on the agenda tonight, but we can have a quick agenda item with maybe a chart that could come back at a later meeting for the council to discuss that and adopt it if you wish.
Yeah. All right. Chris, you got what's in my brain?
I see exactly what's in your brain.
All right.
You
can do that
there's no
mind
issue in
meld
terms
after
of bringing
the,
that forward to make sure it's agendized.
Bring crayons.
Are we? Is everyone good with that? Is there consensus on this?
Well, we're gonna. I think
to bring it back
for
a discussion
with a nice chart.
Yeah.
Yes, we will agendize that.
Thank
to
you.
do exactly that.
Yeah, it's a little housekeeping. Good. Yeah, I'll just say that briefly that there were. This was tough. There were so many qualified applicants, and as Ryan said, certainly thank everybody who was not reappointed, and we obviously didn't have control over all the positions, and you'll notice that there are a lot of new people involved in the commissions, which is a good thing, but those who have served up until now have done a wonderful job, and speaking for the commissions that I've attended, which are all of them, but having been the liaison to the Parks and Rec, which is also no longer the case as of September 1st. I know the workings of that commission pretty well, and I think Scott, the director, will agree with me that the commission has done a wonderful job. But it was tough. You only have one appointment or nomination to each of the commissions, and there were always 1, 2, 3, or more people that you wish you could have nominated. So thanks a lot for everybody who applied and took the time to apply. And it was nice to see the interest that was expressed, and looking forward to good things from everybody who has been nominated and will be appointed.
Eric? Final?
First, I just want to congratulate those that are nominated. I expect all of you to be confirmed to your new positions, and we look forward to seeing the wisdom, the experience, the knowledge, and the skills that you will bring to this, along with the passion. So I look forward to seeing you perform and perform well in your duties once you ascend to each of the commissions. I also want to thank the people who have served, whether they're continuing on or not. Your service made San Dimas better, and because of you, we live in a better city. So thank you very much for that. Mr. Mayor, while this was a very difficult decision, I did want to say that I have some concerns with the process and going through it and learning from that. My biggest concern is just the process of selection. So, for example, in my selections, I interviewed 23 candidates, regardless of which district they lived in. And I'm not sure I would change that, but I am wondering if we do have some members who are looking at the whole city and others who give preference to certain districts, how that might impact things. And we could call it fairness or whatever. I understand each council member can come up with their own selection. But there is a question there as to when you have members use different types of criteria to evaluate candidates, some talking to all, some talking to just a number of few, how that could lead to problems down the line. And I don't think that we can solve it today, but I do think that it's something worth looking at in the future, as something collectively we can evaluate and make our commission selection process more fair, more objective, and more inclusive, so that way everyone feels that when they apply, they don't have to live in a particular district or do something in particular to warrant that appointment. So it's just a concern that I raised because I do know that some residents have expressed that to me, and upon thinking about it, I share some of those concerns. Nonetheless, we did make a lot of progress. Progress shouldn't be shot down in the short term because the process isn't perfect, and so for that, I do applaud the fact that we've been able to move forward in a way that will fill these commissions and start having these commissions do the work of the people. So with that, I turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Mr. Weber?
I think I said my piece at the beginning, so I think it's all you.
I do also want to thank the process. Although I didn't agree 100% with it as we've gone through this thing, I will tell you that I believe there were 39 applications, and that's absolutely outstanding. And I appreciate everybody in the community who thought about this. Just because there were 39 applications, there were many, many more people who called and inquired about it, and I believe spoke with most of us here about where we were going and what we were doing, the size of the commissions and things like that. I will say somewhere along the line, and I'm not 100% sure, and maybe I am partly responsible, is that we had a hiccup. And the hiccup was really simple. When we started talking about this, it was brought up because we were doing it because we had gone to districting. So at one point in this early stage of this thing, the only person that was going to have a citywide appointment parameter was the mayor, because he has no position. And each councilman were going to try to stay within their district. Well, then the applications started coming, and people started seeing that maybe there wasn't a certain person in their district that was interested at all in a particular commission. So then it started, how do we get to be able to fill those commission spots, okay, when we have no one really interested in that spot? So then it became, you could outreach a little further out in your district, and pretty soon it just became, everybody in the city. So everybody on the council absolutely had the opportunity to reach out to everybody. But we started the process with being districts. That was the club. Each council person would have an opportunity to appoint someone from their district. And I just think that somewhere we got into a hiccup, and now we're there. But I tell you right now, when I look at this list of people that were selected, I can truthfully say that it was a very difficult decision for me, and I'm sure it was difficult for everyone else, because those other 15, 20 people that interviewed were every bit as good as everybody there. So it was a hard decision on who was going to represent and whatever. And I just would like to make sure that anyone who was not selected remembers that they can be a major part of this community and in these commissions, because every one of these commissions are open to the public. You can come, you can voice your opinion. The only thing you don't get an opportunity to is vote. But sometimes when you go in and you plead a case, you absolutely have the right to change people's minds. So don't let, just because you don't have a vote, be something that stops you from participating. And that's where I say mine was easy. I believe in consistency, and I was worried about each one of these commissions. So I went to what I felt was consistent to make sure I had some experience on every commission, because I had no idea, no consulting or anything with my fellow councilmen about who they were going to appoint. I'm sitting here just like everybody this evening, wondering who was Ryan Vienna going to appoint to the senior commission. Okay, somebody asked me right before the meeting, and I said, I don't know. So, but I just want to say, I believe every councilman up here, or everybody sitting at this table, has the absolute right to appoint whoever they want. Okay, whoever they feel is going to represent their district or this city the best, and I appreciate all the work. I know that each one of these guys thought about this a lot, okay? And I think we got, when I look at this list, there are 39 of the best people going, and there are not 39 people on this list. So all 39 people who applied, who wanted to be a part, I congratulate you for taking a part in a process and just stay involved. I think a while back it was said, what do you recommend that I do to be involved in a city? I want to take part in the process, the governmental process, and I said, get elected, get appointed to a commission and move forward, give you time. We've had Councilman Vienna, he said that 4 or 5 years ago, and he got on the commission, Councilman Weber. So the reality is, stay active, stay involved. We got lots of places and lots of things for people to do. I mean, we got things to do that we could put this whole city together. So thank you very much. Okay, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 5-0. Congratulations to all those who were elected or nominated and confirmed. You're now representatives of the city of San Dimas on a commission. Thank you. Okay. We'll adjourn this, we'll take a recess in this council meeting, and we'll open up the San Dimas Housing Authority.
Item? Okay. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council and members of the public. My name is Lily Flores. I'm the Housing Manager. The item before you is the consideration and approval of the program guidelines for the Charter Oak Mobile Home Estates Facade Improvement Grant Program. As you're aware, the Housing Authority owns the Charter Oak Estates Mobile Home Park, which is currently being managed by John A. DeFalco Property Management Company. The park is a 55-plus community consisting of 184 owner-occupied units and 1 unit owned by the Housing Authority that is occupied by the on-site property managers. The park currently has 41 very low-income residents. I wanted to correct that in my staff report. I'm sorry, I was wrong. The staff report says 40, but it's a total of 41. There's 11 of those are very low-income residents, and 30 of those are extremely very low-income residents at 30% or below AMI. Staff has done a lot of upgrades to the park. We built a dog park in the back, which opened in April. Management has also cleaned out the back RV storage area in preparation for the wall. We upgraded the gym equipment and have an actual gym that is being used daily by the residents. We upgraded the cameras at and around the clubhouse, and we are almost done with the clubhouse upgrades, getting new furniture for the TV room, library, and meeting room. With all these upgrades being done at the park, staff has seen the need for residents to repair the exterior of the units and address existing code violations. And we've been working with management to come up with the program before you, the Charter Oak Mobile Home Estates Facade Improvement Program. This program will assist the very low-income residents in addressing code violations and improve the physical appearance of their mobile home. The program will serve the very low-income seniors at 30% or below AMI, who are on fixed incomes and cannot afford to make the corrections and any improvements to the exterior of their home. Priority will be given to the lowest income residents. Housing staff and management will work together to implement and operate the program. The program will provide a grant of up to $15,000 per property. Allowable improvements will include identified code violations, pressure washing the unit, painting the unit, including the storage shed to match if they have one, slumpstone brick caps in front of the unit, window replacements, skirting repair replacement, roof repair replacements, awning repair replacements, and stairs repair replacements. Landscaping is not going to be an eligible improvement unless a code of violation is present. In conclusion, staff recommends that the City Council consider and approve the program guidelines for the Charter Oak Mobile Home Estates Facade Improvement Grant Program. That concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Questions?
Hey, Lily, I just have one, thanks for that one clarification. I had another clarification. Is 30% and below considered extremely low, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and so you're mentioning that the program will serve the very low-income seniors, and you say 30% or below. Are you really meaning the extremely low?
Yes, that is correct.
It'll be extremely low, but not the low who are in the 31 to 50%.
Right. Out of the 41, we're going to help the first 30, which are at the extremely very low.
Got it. And
30% or below, they make less than $30,000 a year.
Oh, absolutely. This is so beneficial.
Yeah.
You can't really overstate it. And then, do we have enough money to do that? And
we've only budgeted $200,000 for this program year, so it is a new program. We're going to see how it runs, and we don't anticipate everybody needing the $15,000, so it's going to be up to $15,000. So we're going to try to serve as many as we can this year, and then quite possibly come back for a little bit more money if needed.
And is this money coming from the housing set-aside fund, or where's the money coming from?
The money is coming from their collected rents, so it's coming from their money.
Put back into the park then?
Correct.
All right, great. And thanks for the dog park too.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Any further questions?
So I had one question. The grant takes into account their income level. Does it also take into account their net worth? And the reason why I asked it is there may be some people, for example, who are retired who may not be drawing an income or what have you, but may be wealthy in terms of their net worth, in which case we would probably want the grant to go to some other party that needs it. So I just wondered if you could elaborate so that we don't give grant money intended for people who are poor and can't afford repairs or modifications, taking it, not that I would assume that would happen, but it could, right? Taking advantage of a program where it's really not that intention.
When we do calculate income, you do take their assets into account, and per HUD regulations, you use 2.5% of those assets towards their income. I can tell you that none of these residents have any type of assets, but we do, besides the home that they owned, but we would include that in some of them.
Excellent.
Some residents are living off their saved income or their saved accounts, and don't even receive less than $800 a month on
Okay.
Social Security. So I have to use that money to make their payments.
Thank you for your clarification.
Sure.
Eric?
Nothing.
Hey, we had a program like this for several years, right? And the threshold for money was quite considerably lower. And how did that program work overall?
Well, we still do have our rehab program, which is a grant for the $15,000.
This will be in addition.
Correct, because that program is citywide. We are using CDBG funding for that. This is specific to Charter Oak residents only because it's using their income or their money.
Super. And who's in the approval chain to say I apply? Who's going to be reviewing this and who's going to be approving it?
Housing staff is. So housing staff will be doing all the applications and income verifications. The property management company is going to be doing the construction work from their contractors division of their management company.
So if I own a place and I want to have my place painted, I have to use the management company? Or can I find my own painter?
Their contractor. For our program, we're going to be using their contractor.
Okay. Any further questions? Can I have a motion?
I'll move approval as staff's recommended in the report.
I'll second.
Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Good work, Lily, and thanks for helping those people. Okay. Motion carries 5-0. Okay. This time we'll close the Housing Authority, and we'll go back to the regular scheduled meeting. Okay. Oral communications. Well, it seemed like it went awful fast. I thought we were going to be here for a while. Members of the audience, speakers are limited to 3 minutes, or as may be determined by the chair. Anyone wishing to, do we have any names? No. Do we have anyone wishing to speak to the council at this time? We'll move on to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I have several updates. While significant threats were being posed by the tropical storm Hillary this weekend, San Dimas was fortunate to have prepared staff and to have weathered the storm better than expected. So I want to go through some of the preparations and impacts that occurred during the storm. In preparation for the storm, and some of this is something we do on a regular basis without anybody prompting. It's our wonderful parks and rec and public works staff that do this. We were sweeping roadways and clearing channels before the storms. Just four loads of materials were removed on Saturday alone from just street sweeping. Staff goes out and cleans problematic drains in advance of the storm. These are drains that are the ones that typically end up clogging and causing flooding problems that we have to respond to during the storm. We brought in sand earlier than we usually bring it. We typically bring it in during mid-September, but knowing the storm was coming in, we brought a lot of it and pre-positioned it up at the park, and then we're moving it down to the municipal yard. We set schedules for staff to be both active during the course of the weekend and storms and throughout the night, and also on standby in the case that the storm became worse than what was predicted. We prepared all our vehicles with materials, equipment, and the essentials to respond, including additional sand in the cases that we needed to put those sand barriers down. During the storm, crews were patrolling and responding 24/7. There were multiple calls for service from residents, the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, the fire department, and even our department heads were out and about touring through the night and day and taking in responses and sending it to our staff to be able to properly respond. We patrol the San Dimas Loop frequently to assess any impacts that may be occurring to an already degraded road. As you remember, it was severely impacted by the heavy rains during the February rainfall. We declared an emergency, and we've submitted that for funding assistance from FEMA and Cal OES. We sealed the cracks on the San Dimas Loop so that it would reduce the amount of water intrusion. We did that sealing back in May, and so it seemed that that held up quite well in terms of the San Dimas Loop, but we did focus on that area. Puente Channel in the Villa Verde area, the flow was extremely full, and so our staff was quick to go back out after the storm and ensure they were able to clean it up so that if the next storm, it could take the capacity that it's able to take. There were also several council members that went out to see our preparations both before the storm and during the course of the storm, which was really appreciated by staff to see council taking an interest in terms of what staff were doing. Overall, in terms of the impact, 29 city trees were impacted with branches down, requiring a response to either clear roadways or sidewalks. There were 3 private trees or tree branches that were down that also blocked sidewalks and roads. No structures were hit from any tree objects from what we know. So we don't know if there was a private tree falling on a private house or a branch that caused some damage. We wouldn't know if a tree fell on a house and made it inoccupable. There was localized flooding, but there were no significant impacts related to that flooding or damage. 18 truckloads of sand with 10,000 sandbags were used during the course of the storm. And just to show you, in a typical year where we don't have a major storm, we use 8,000 sandbags and 18 truckloads. We literally used an entire year's worth and more in some cases in the course of a very short several number of days. And so very appreciative that staff had the forethought to set that out. We had bags also at the local fire station, but no sand, and people had to shovel their as much sand as they wanted into those bags. The total cost of the sand was almost $9,000 and then $6,000 additional for the sandbags. Horse Thief Canyon will remain closed until Wednesday about lunchtime to complete the cleanup. As we always are aware, when a major storm occurs, stormwater runoff that comes off the hillside, there is not a robust and adequate stormwater system that channels the debris away from what occurs from the street and the parking lots of the park. So we're left with several days of cleaning related to the storm. And I wanted to especially give my deepest regards and thanks to our staff from Public Works and Parks and Recreation that were either out in the storm assisting on standby or did preparations. And with specific emphasis, I wanted to name Mario Sanchez, Esau Ramos, Kevin Henderson, Gabe Ramirez, Joe Alvaranga, Daniel Castro, Alex Perez, and Steve Farmer that were instrumental during the course of this, as well as the remaining Public Works, Parks and Rec staff, department heads, and managers that were all hands, and of course to the council members that were also involved. In moving forward with an upgrade of the city's broadcast equipment here at the council chambers, the council chambers will be under construction from August 23rd to September 20th. This was a contract the council approved several months ago. So in collaboration with the city clerk and the administration, the city council meeting scheduled for September 12th will be relocated to the Senior Center multi-purpose room. We will prepare that room for the meeting and be able to broadcast that meeting as a temporary location. With the construction, we should expect some commotion with regards to noise, technicians coming and going, and service and supply deliveries for the equipment that's in this location. So we apologize in advance for any inconvenience this may cause. We anticipate September 26th to be the first council meeting debuting the new equipment in this chambers. However, we are prepared because it is possible that delays in installation and getting the system to work may result in us having to have that second meeting also in the senior center. The equipment we're upgrading is high definition. Our camera quality should be much better. Our reliability should be much better. I know we've had numerous instances where the videos would freeze or stop or the volume wouldn't be there when we're projecting a council meeting. And the last thing we want is the system to have a total failure in the middle of a council meeting and then months of not being able to broadcast a meeting. So this is welcome. Simultaneous to our study session and leading up until the start of this meeting, the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department conducted, in partnership with the city, a senior safety meeting event where they invited the Fraud and Cyber Crimes Division unit to come to the senior center and present to our seniors how to protect yourself from fraud. It's an incredibly devastating crime that occurs against our seniors, and every instance of education by the Sheriff's Office is deeply valued. I also want to recognize that the Sheriff's Department also did a fentanyl presentation earlier in the year and how to protect ourselves. It's very welcome to see that education coming to our community from the Sheriff's Department. I wanted to give you an update on the 740 East Foothill project. This is an update that we put out to the community. City Manager Ken Domer and I met with the Supervisor's Office as well as National Corps after our joint City Council meetings. At that council meeting, it was requested that we sit down and potentially identify alternative sites for the placement of this permanent supportive housing unit instead of the 740 location as proposed by National Corps. In the discussions, we made clear that both cities are opposed to the current location as proposed. Recently, we met with the team again and received word that none of the other alternate sites were viable for National Corps, and that National Corps is intending on proceeding with the current 740 East Foothill site, albeit with some changes. We reiterated that with our councils, without our council changing positions from the position that both our councils took, which were opposition, that we cannot support the current site in any shape or form until something is either presented and then the council changes their positions. The position that the council already took is a position that stands. National Corps continues to work to listen to the community and reduce the height of the project with the potential to drop the entire building to 3 stories. But as of right now, there is no formal development that has been submitted that we know of to the county's regional planning, so we do not know what that final project will look like, what structure it would have, and what implications it would have in our community. But that's the most recent update that we have on the 740 project. Just 2 last updates with regards to the Gold Line. Next week, the Gold Line will begin work on modifying the median on San Dimas Avenue between Arrow Highway and the tracks. Once the details are confirmed, the Gold Line will put out a flyer with regards to the work that they're doing in that location. In Freedom Park, which is abutting the city's former park and ride that's now the park and ride which will be used for the Gold Line station parking. Next week, the Gold Line will begin work on access to the park and ride from Commercial through the backside of the park. That backside parcel is now property of the Gold Line to be used for access into the park and ride. And Gold Line will provide notices to the impacted homes and businesses around the area before proceeding with that construction. It is estimated that both these items will take approximately 5 to 6 weeks to complete, and that we should be seeing some parking and flow impacts in that area during the course of that 5 or 6 weeks. So we're awaiting the public notices that we can put out on social media on our website. With that, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it back to you.
Any questions? I just have one question. With Gold Line taking starting to work on the access from off of Commercial, okay, the back of the Freedom Park, how much is there going to be taking? What's the width of that driveway, and is that going to take any of the property that the Freedom Park sits on right now? The memorial.
It should not impact the structure of the memorial that's there. It comes up to about there's a landscape location just west of the structure where there's actually an electrical box, and so it'll be all the way up until that approximate electrical box.
Okay, I drove by what we knew as the park and ride, and it had all these nice trees and stuff. Now it looks like a vacant lot. So I guess they're moving forward pretty quickly. For a entity that kept saying that we were holding them up, they seem to be moving pretty quick. So I'm hoping they're not using this now as continued excuse about why we might not have a station.
And they're reporting that they're on track time-wise and under budget.
Isn't that pretty amazing?
Well, as long as you bring it up, I had a resident today just comment about how the driveway that you're talking about going through to Commercial is taking out so much landscaping. That park is going to look a lot different. Thankfully, from the memorial to the street, it's not affected, but it really affects the look and feel of the park. And as we all know, many people have commented that park and ride was just destroyed and it's the metro. It's going to be built to the metro standards, which means a few trees and a lot of parking spots and asphalt. So it's interesting when we talk about climate change and trying to make these adjustments, that sometimes the solution to one thing, such as parking, ignores or at least doesn't take into full consideration the impacts to what's there. In this case, landscaping and the convenience of the park, the city-owned park and ride. And when people hear, because some people don't know the whole story, when people hear that we're not going to be able to, nobody's going to be able to park there anymore without paying $3 or whatever it is, they're surprised, to say the least.
Okay. City Attorney?
Mayor, I have a quick news item about AB 1234 ethics training that came up in the last week or so. As we all know, the AB 1234 is a law that was adopted several years ago that requires council members and some of our commissioners to take ethics laws training once every 2 years. And in San Dimas, generally, the council and the planning commission takes that training at conferences that you all attend, such as League of Cities Conference or the Contract Cities Conference. It's provided for free at those conferences. And at times, I've also given ethics laws trainings to you here at City Hall and to many of our commissioners now that the council's decided to require ethics training for all of our commissioners. The FPPC, which is the state agency that deals with ethics enforcement in California, it always used to be that if you missed one of these live ethics trainings, that you could go on the FPPC's website and they would have a free ethics training 2-hour class that you could take online. And that would fulfill your 2-year requirement for ethics training. The FPPC has just decided, due to funding issues, that they are no longer going to provide that online free ethics training. And so therefore, our officials in San Dimas that do need to take that training every 2 years will need to find it at some live location, either at a conference, or if you absolutely miss all the opportunities at conferences, then we can hold an ethics training here at City Hall provided by myself. But it will no longer be offered for free on the state FPPC's website.
Okay. Members of the City Council, council reports on meetings attended at the expense of the local agency. Seeing none, we'll move to City Council requests for further items, comments, and updates. Mr. Nakano.
No comments, then, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Weber.
Bonita USD is back in school. I had a little party celebrating the last day of summer, and oh, well, what I meant to say is I took my son out bowling, but it was more fun for me than it was for him because he's going back to school and I'm not. So parents are rejoicing across the city because Monday was the first day of school. And I just wanted to say good luck to not only our students, but also our teachers. They may need it. And then I also wanted to say thank you to Captain Ash and the Sheriff's Department. There was a fantastic arrest that was made the other day that involved a good bit of partnership and work between the community and our sheriff's deputies, and it panned out to be a fantastic end result for the community. And I will leave it at that. So thank you.
Sean?
I just wanted to give a big thank you to staff for the preparation and the response to the storm. Down here, it didn't turn out to be as catastrophic an event as was prepared for anyway. But we were out, not we, staff was out there, the city was out there getting ready, as Chris mentioned, and then just staffed up, I think it was round the clock, to address anything that came up. And so just a lot of thanks for that kind of preparation. And for the council, thank you to Chris for doing a message or a chat group that included the whole council so we could be kept up to date on what was going on if we weren't out there in person patrolling the streets or looking for looking for things. I will tell you, though, that I do have a rain gauge in my backyard, and we're off to a great start for this rain year. Got 4.35 inches of rain. So hopefully a lot of that sinks into the ground and doesn't just get washed out to the ocean. But yeah, it was good, and you shouldn't have to water any plants that are outside for a week at least. So thank you. Oh, the other thing too, I wanted to mention that a little early, but the running event, the Runnin' Scared, this year is a little early, so it's still Runnin' Scared. So Halloween is just expanding more and more. This is on September 30th. I say it now because if you're not in shape and you want to run, you got 5 weeks to get in shape. It's a 5K. If you don't want to do the 5K, you can do the 1 mile. If you don't want to do the 1 mile, you can do the toddler trot, but I think there is an age cutoff on that one. So, or a height anyway. So, but yeah, Runnin' Scared, September 30th. It's moving back to the downtown area, which is always fun to see people running by my house and in various states of fitness and exhaustion. But so September 30th, that's coming up, along with a lot of other good events coming up. But that's the only one I'll mention now. Thanks a lot. And
Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor. One is I, too, want to express my thanks to staff and the Sheriff's Department, the Fire Department, everyone that did their part over the weekend. There was a rather robust anticipation, I think, not just from the city level, but the county as well and the state. And I know there are people in the National Guard that live here in San Dimas that were activated to assist with some of this. So thank you to everybody in the different capacities that they serve in, and whether you serve to help residents here at home in San Dimas or elsewhere, thank you for that service. The mayor and I went and kidnapped the city manager and rode around and patrolled the foothills, and we're looking for historic catastrophic rainfall off of the trails and what have you, and looking for flooding, and went up Terrebonne and Golden Hills Road and all that stuff. So, the good news, I think, is, staff did such a good job in preparing, and I think we all really benefited from that. And whether you decided not to stay home on Sunday and go to get food somewhere, or what have you. I even saw DoorDash at some point stop delivering, which I think some people were probably not feeling too hot at that point. But nevertheless, everyone did a really good job. So thank you to everybody here at the city that did their part. The one thing that was brought to my attention, and maybe in the future, in terms of our disaster planning, that we could look to help out with, is preparing sandbags for seniors. And that was actually some feedback I received, and I don't know if we could engage CERT or civics organizations, or even put up a day, perhaps, a day and a time frame where we will have pre-packaged sandbags available for folks who may be either disabled or not physically able to load those bags. So if that's, yes?
Yeah, thank you for that. That there was a city that actually did fill those sandbags. Torrance, I believe, was doing that, and they publicized that. That was something that came up also, so I appreciate you highlighting that. That's something we'll look into.
Perfect. Okay, good deal. So until the next time, I think everyone stay safe, stay dry. Hopefully we have some gorgeous weather coming this weekend, and we can put Hillary behind us. Thanks.
Thank you, Ryan. I think it was Torrance, and it was a heck of an idea. We try to do so many things and with their seniors in mind, but I don't think with everything going on, we actually even thought about it. But it's a great idea. We have CERT, we have all these other organizations. I guarantee you, if we put the word out that we need able-bodied people to help fill sandbags, we get Rotary, we get all of these folks that would be more than willing to help.
You'll probably get a supplemental appropriation for equipment that allows us to fill sandbags without having to use.
Well, you know what? You can take your shovel from your house and just bring in, and we'll see you down there. Yeah. You know what? That Sunday morning, Chris and I took off to look around the community to see where we're staffed, check in with our staff, and then we ran into Ryan and his wife Nicole, who was venturing out to do the same exact thing. So we did team up because he had this brand new truck and we just wanted to get it dirty. And so we did a good job of doing it, but we checked, all the northern end of the city. The loop got checked, everything got checked. That evening, I also, earlier that day, we went around to the mobile home park because that was our concern with the backside of the mobile home park. The morning it was fine. It was really strange. About 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock that night, it was even better because one, we couldn't see anything, but we had no residents out having to worry about their mobile homes, and that was a pleasure and whatever. I guess where I'm going with this, San Dimas residents heard the urgency of the county, the state, and everybody involved in this weather experience, because people were out there, they were filling sandbags, they got ready. So we were ready as a community, we were ready, and I think everyone in this community should give themselves a pat on the back because, they went out of their way. You looked at the streets were, I'm not going to say they were bare, but I think the cupboards were bare at Costco and a few other places. People, you thought it was the pandemic starting all over again because, there was no toilet paper there was no water there was no anything. But people got ready, and so they heeded all that. And so if we'd have had a problem, we'd have worked through it. And I want to thank the community for that. One thing, there's all these unintended consequences that happen when anytime something happens. And over this last week or so, I spent a lot of time in the downtown. And one of the things that kept coming up was from their downtown business owners was signage. Okay, and I would like, whether we like it or not, the train is coming, Gold Line is coming, or whatever they want to call it this week. But it has divided our community into an old town and potentially a new town. So subsequently, I would like to ask that the staff come back at a later meeting and bring the sign ordinance that deals with the downtown area, and let's have a look at it and talk about it so that the businesses in the downtown area have the opportunity to use appropriate signage, because as we know, the train is going to come back of the buildings over there, back behind Pizzetto's and Sweet Savory and all those restaurants right there, all the 3 restaurants right there, but more restaurants are coming. So we'd like to be able to, when you come in on the train, you look over and say, Pizzetto's, or other restaurants or other things. So I just like to see what bring up to date the council in case there's something that we want to discuss it further. So sometime down the line, and if I could get somebody that might be interested in that.
I support that. Yeah.
Okay, because I think our businesses will be very much thankful, because there is a concern, and they're concerned about the parking. They're seeing that the park and ride is now bare. But that hasn't decreased any of our parking problem in the downtown area, and as we know, it's only going to get worse. But I think signage is a good way to telegraph to them that we care. So, but if we could do that. After that, I have no other further things, but I would point out that we have a closed session. Jeff, do you want to speak to that? Oh, I'm sorry. We do have one other thing. Annual appointment of the Mayor Pro Tem. Deborah?
Mayor, Council, and the San Dimas community. In 2008, the City Council voted to change the term served as Mayor Pro Tem from 4 years to 1 year, with an appointment that coincides in the month following a general municipal election. The Mayor Pro Tem appointment has rotated by seniority, with the newly elected council member eligible after their first year on the council. In 2022, the election was moved to June, and the Mayor Pro Tem appointment was done in July. The city's next election will be moved to March for 2024. Therefore, the Mayor Pro Tem appointment for 2023 will serve a term through March 2025. As outlined in the attached history of councilmember chart, Councilmember Ryan Viana would be the next in line for appointment. Staff is recommending at this time that the council appoint a Mayor Pro Tem. That concludes my report.
I just had a clarifying question. We're in 2023, and this appointment would go to 2025? Is that correct? Or this would be 23 to 24?
24.
To 24. Okay. And I guess one other question, regardless of whether or not I'm appointed or not, I think the primary, our election is all governed by the primary, whether it moves to March or whether it moves to June, dependent upon whether or not it's a presidential election year. In this case, the last election was a June election. What would it take for us to just resolve that this appointment from now moving forward just is done annually at the second meeting in June? Because otherwise you're going to encounter this short term in perpetuity.
I understand what Ryan's saying, and I completely agree. I think we should make it maybe the first or second meeting in July, because the first meeting in June, the second meeting in June is sometimes it's just the installation of the new people.
Certifying the election. So the first meeting in July.
Second point of clarification, you were saying in an election year, that would make the terms 2 years. But I believe we agreed some time ago that the terms are basically 1 year.
Right.
Yes.
So I believe what we're saying, I think, Ryan, you're saying this, is that annually, and I'd say the first meeting in July might be best, would be the time we appoint a new mayor pro tem, using the exact rotation that you're talking about. How does that sound?
You know, I understand what you're saying, and July doesn't make a difference to me, at least. But our election is in March, and it gets certified 30 days after that, right?
Yes.
Okay. How do we get to June or July to have an installation?
Because your election's only occurring because it's a presidential election year in March. All other elections will be in June. So we would be consistent, not shortening terms for the pro tem appointment. If we just adopt the policy saying standard in June, we will reorganize, or I'm sorry, in July.
That would be fine with me, but we will have a sitting council at the end of April.
Yes, that's true. But you want everybody to get that 1 year. So just if you make it every July, which is after the certification of the election that occurs in June, and it's certainly 3 months after the certification that occurs in March, it just makes it consistent.
Yeah,
The only other way of doing it that you're alluding to would be to do something in April of the years, every 4 years that there is an election in March. So that person would only have 9 months, and then the next person would have a year and 3 months.
Yeah.
So to make it consistent in going along with our 1 year policy, so I don't know if everybody understands it. I would make a motion that
We can bring back an agenda item for the changes to whatever ordinances or resolutions, or maybe the handbook as well, are needed to make this change for the date that the mayor pro tem is appointed.
It's a policy.
Was this approved by resolution, or was it just an action of council? Or-
It was a policy action of council. There is no resolution for this.
So they voted on it at the time, right?
So Jeff, just tell me if this is appropriate. I would make a motion that we appoint Ryan Viana as mayor pro tem for a term that goes until the first meeting in July.
Yeah, if there's no ordinance or resolution or handbook written rule, then that is appropriate.
Okay, that's my motion then.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Any further confusion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Congratulations, Mr. Vienna.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thanks, John.
All right.
Where's the baton?
This time, we're going to go into a closed session. At this time, we're going to go into a closed session to discuss one item on the agenda, which is a conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation. Conference with legal counsel, anticipated innovation. Government Code 54956.9D4, one case. And then after that, the city attorney will come out and speak to an empty room.
That's correct. That's correct.
You are welcome to stay.